Welcome to the podcast of School Beyond Limitations. In this podcast, you will learn how to guide your child through their school life with the intention to help them find their unique essence that will allow your daughter, your son to live a fulfilled and meaningful life. Welcome to today's podcast of School Beyond Limitations, and today I would like to reverse the roles because today I would like to interview our wonderful alumni Nayeef Khan about his experience at the SPL, because I would like him to give his insights about what he went through when he was at SPL. So Nayeef, thank you for joining again.
Thank you for having
Welcome.
me.
I wanted to ask you, my first question is, why did you actually reach out in the first place to become a student of a School Beyond Limitations?
So it started, uh, long ago. I think I was very young. I think about 9 or 10 when I realized the current education, or I wasn't enjoying school. In simple words, right? Precisely. And there has been certain moments where I felt like, why could it not be something that I want to do, that I do, and the people around me supports. So thankfully, my parents were really supportive, and they've always encouraged me to do the things I've always wanted to do. Things like these would happen. Like I would go to school, I would attend the lessons, but then when I came back home, I would not work on my homeworks or other things because I was simply not interested, and I would work on something else. But that got me into trouble as I would go to the school the next day. And it was going like this, and I was missing out on so much because there's so much that I wanted to do always, and I couldn't. And then COVID came in, and I always tell this story to people that COVID is a terrible, terrible thing that happened to our life, but it came also on the other hand as a blessing for me personally. It's because that's when I had a setback from everything, right? And I was having a time for myself, and I was reflecting on myself, and I think I was about 13, and I actually started doing the things that I always wanted to do and I enjoyed, and I explored writing, for example, and those things turned out to be poems, and I would then go to my parents, go to the people that I know, my cousins, my friends, and I would get feedbacks, and I enjoyed honestly the entire process of it. And then obviously I couldn't just go like that. I had to be a part of an educational institution. So I wasn't looking for schools online, and I was looking for schools here, obviously back in my country. And then obviously there are some courses, as you know, online where you can just do math course or English courses. And I was looking into those, and then me and my parents both were looking for schools, and then I happened to find SBL, and I shared with my father first, and we discussed a bit like how this could work. And I just went to the website. The moment I read everything, I clearly remember till this day, was like, if everything that has been said in the website, and if it is actually being practiced, then this is exactly for me. And so I remember reaching out to you directly. I emailed you about joining and express my interest, and then I heard back from you, and then we had exchanges of emails over the time. And I think after, I remember, 4 weeks, after a few weeks, you reached back again and said, we are offering you this place at SBL. And so then I joined SBL, and that's how the journey began.
And you were referring to what you read about SPL on the website, and what were the key features that captured you because you were looking for something different, and what was it that captured you?
Well, first of all, the few words were personalized learning. The few words were holistic approach to learning, because even from a very young age, I realized that education cannot be very, uh, pressurizing. Like, you cannot expect someone to do certain things to pass grades. It has to be much more than that. It has to be a proper assessment and evaluation of their entire learning journey. It cannot be, just topics and subjects and passing grades and all. And when I read a little bit more, and of course, some of the things like, the school is about exploring and also like experiential learning. And then, traveling is a part of the school, although unfortunately I couldn't make it happen in the last 5 years. But I mean, these were the things that I was interested in. And then I remember after having our interview, the first time when you interviewed me, we did discuss many things. I don't remember all the things, but some of the things were like, you were talking about how the school would work, and you were asking me something about my understanding of education. And I think there I managed to express pretty well that how I viewed education even back then. I viewed education as much more broader than it is generally practiced. It has to be a way of lifestyle education. It cannot be just my academic learnings. Although I don't demean the theoretical learning ever, and I keep repeating that. So yeah.
So you were just referring to education and learning being a lifestyle, right? And that you read so many things that inspired you. Between there are many people who say, on the websites of many schools, you read all those wonderful words and sentences that talk about personalization, that talk about experiential learning, that talk about many, many different aspects, such as holistic education as well, and maybe also business and a lesson in happiness and well-being and so forth. Is what you have read, did that match the practice, or was there a big divide between the words and what you have experienced in or did experience in real life for the last 5 years? And I'm saying actually have experienced because you're still constantly in contact with SPL. You're currently also doing the teacher training program with SPL, which is beautiful. So is there a divide between the words and the practice? What would you say?
There is certainly a difference. The difference is I have received much more than what was there on the website, because the website is just consisting of words like personalized learning, holistic learning, and I can just only think of the things like generally what they mean. But when you go through the experience, you actually experience a lot more. And usually it happens if you genuinely actually offer the things you've written there. Why I say it? I say it because I remember we began with like WhatsApp groups. We did not have the Google Chats back then. So the first batch that I was with, consisting of 8 people and 3 facilitators, we used to do 3 cycles, and it was the moment I joined the lesson. Obviously it was not exactly what I was expecting, because it's generally not being practiced in traditional schools. So it was a lot different, and it was online also. But after some time, I realized like things I'm being taught in a way, it's more like I'm actively learning it rather than just receiving information. And so I was being pushed to actually present my own things, shape my own things, and shape my own learning. And this was a big thing for me back then, because I was experiencing it for the first time. I adapted to it pretty quickly, I believe, but that understanding, just the understanding of new dimension of education and how this could work, really, gave me a broader sense of, education could be truly much more than what I generally was practicing, right? And all the peers back then were great. We had all this group presentations. We did our own works, and we just shared a lot, which was not something that at least happened in my school when I was here, right? I mean, we talked a lot, but we did not share about learning, and we did not, go for go after curiosity, which is a big part of the school. Like, hey, I'm interested in this. Someone would come to me and say, I'm interested in this. Do you want to work together? And these are not normal things at regular schools, at least here. So I mean, that definitely helped a lot for my development and for my growth, because as a 13-year-old, when you're constantly working with people and their curiosity and your curiosity, you're working actively onto something and creating projects, shaping your own learning from that age. I think that also creates you as a leader, because that's when you're like clear, like, oh, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm generally interested in. So I'd better do it than just wait for a facilitator or a teacher to just come at me and ask me, hey, did you do this? I do this and I submit, and then they give me a feedback. This is a very slow process, and this is very backdated. It's very outdated, this learning process. It has to be active, it has to be constant, and it has to be something that serves both your interest and your growth. And I think the blend of that is what lacked from where it come from initially, right?
So, Naif, you said, you really benefited from this co-creation process and sharing, and that's one extremely important feature at SPL, because we say we co-construct knowledge, we co-construct learning, we co-construct, our reality around us. And you also mentioned, it changed the perspective on life completely for you, right? But you also have experience, 5 years within SPL, with students joining SPL maybe at a later stage where they have been already, exposed to very conventional learning. It is, I call it a little bit the bulimic learning, for just for the test, and then you forget about this. And you mentioned, we are approaching it from a very active, perspective, active learning, you mentioned. So, did you notice that being exposed to a learning environment like this as a younger person, the earlier you start, do you think the better it is? Have you also noticed, students joining at a later stage which found it much more difficult to adapt and to understand that they are indeed the creators and the co-creators of the learning and the content that they are doing? What would you say out of your perspective?
I mean, yeah, I mean, certainly it will be a lot harder if you've experienced traditional and conventional learning for a much longer time, right? Because you're then used to something, you're habituated to, one way of learning, and you have this vision like, oh, learning should be this way. And if anything new comes up, then it's generally a bit difficult for you to adapt with. Although I don't necessarily think it's the individual themselves who find it difficult to adapt. I think it's also the environment, and it's also their surrounding, and the support, which and lack of and communication is a key here. Because if you're communicating well with your parents, with your friends, with your environment, if you have a safe environment around you, and then you're constantly wanting to know more about the school and trying to get to the school's process, I think it becomes a lot easier. And that happened for me. But of course, I do understand the notion where it can be hard. I wish that I was there even at a much younger age, but I joined at 13. If I would have joined at 15 or 16, let's say, of course, I expect myself to blend to SBL's culture maybe a bit lately than I did, right? And I think this can be overcome, definitely, because as I said, it's very active, and you do feel and you do realize once you're in the setting, even if not immediately, after several months or several weeks of being at school, and then if you self-reflect on yourself, and if you truly find yourself like working with SBL, not under SBL, I think this understanding actually will eventually open up. And I'm sure that you had lots of experiences like these when a student just came up to you a lot later and then said, you know what, SBL is truly working for me, and I'm blessed for this and that. And I hear these stories, and I feel like, yeah, it is possible. I do want to mention that SBL for the 5 years was not the same. Obviously, for me, the experience was very different from year to year, from facilitator to facilitator, from circumstances to circumstances. It was very different, right? And this is the beauty of contemporary learning, because you're constantly experiencing what's around you. Sometimes there are problems around me, around my environment, and sometimes I'm coping with this, and then I'm having the education. So this is exactly it. It's part of your lifestyle. You're constantly working with your education, with your life, with your family, with your friends, and it's all a team. You're not separating things like, oh, school is a separate entity, my home is a separate entity, my friends are separate circles. And I think this really developed this sense like, okay, I could make everything work together. I just need to have the right sense of things, the right understanding of things, and the right set of people to support me, which definitely the SBL has got. And one more thing I want to mention is the appreciative part of facilitators, and the critical constructive criticism that the school provides also helps students to grow and develop. And I say this because as I said, I used to practice writing, and I was interested in that. I enjoyed it. And because I got a lot of appreciation from my peers, and because they showed genuine interest in what I wrote, and what I have to share, and the facilitators gave me feedback like, hey, if you could, practice this, maybe this would be better. But I like this part of yours. And and we co-created the understanding of how to better express myself, and that turned out to be a successful, little story for me because I published my own book. No matter the fact whether it's good or not, but I published it and I'm happy about it because those were all my writings from when I was younger, and these are the little steps and the little accomplishments that eventually stacks up to be making you a leader for your future because you have already experienced through things, and Faces is a great example for that.
Well, you touched upon Faces now, which maybe not everyone knows about, but Faces is, the company that you created throughout your time at SPL, the clothing company, and I think you did pretty well with that. And we had lots of meetings around the growth and the development of this company as well. And maybe that's also a feature of SPL. But let's get back what you said before, and then we can also go into this entrepreneurial aspect of SPL because we, of course, we say we are the creators of our own destiny, so to speak, of our own life. And as such, we have everything, at hand. But you mentioned and touched upon something important where you said, communication is so important, and the communication between all the stakeholders, communication, parents are coming along, you were supported by your parents, the parents were very appreciative of what SPL was doing, there was you didn't have this kind of understanding, well, what I'm doing at school my parents don't actually agree with. So basically, your parents, and I will never forget about that. And I think I mentioned that already in one of our podcasts before. I will never forget when your parents actually said to me, when we finally decided that you would join SPL, then your father told me, listen, now I trust you. I hand over, so to speak, my son, who was at the time 13, as you rightly said. I pass over to you. We are there in the background, of course, and you, of course, just mentioned that your parents were always at your side. They always, facilitated what we were doing also at school, and that formed your understanding of learning further, and also your personality. You often talk about leadership. And how important it is to become the leader of your own life. But if you had to describe, you also mentioned facilitators, and of course they are different, and yet there is a shared, clear understanding, right? And it's a culture. So if you had to describe the culture of SPL, of School Beyond Limitations, what would you say about the culture of School Beyond Limitations, in your words?
Um, Ever developing, I would say, because you cannot put one concrete conclusion to it, like, oh, this is the culture of SBL. I think it's constantly developing. It's constantly having new experiences, new perspectives, new realities of the world, and it's constantly coping up with it, and then creating the best possible way for students to learn from their own reality. As I said, this school is contemporary. It's not stuck to the past only. Like, this is a set method which has been practiced for about 200 years, and then you just go through this, pass some exams, and you move on. It's rather like what's happening around you is your reality. You make the best out of your reality by learning through life. And I think this notion is constantly practiced in one of the core values. And as you said rightly, I mean, as I do mention that the facilitators are different, the experiences will be different, but I mean, we all do share a common value, right? At the end of the day, facilitators, the peers, parents, that's why we align, we come together, and we create this community. And this is so vital for a community to have a shared understanding of things. Like, think of this as a society. You have people of different religions, people of different races, people of different, you know, backgrounds of families and all. But at the end of the day, they do share a common understanding and a common value. And then if that unites, everything is going to eventually turn out to be great. And at SBL, we see that.
And you know, Naive, this actually, I was aiming for us to talk about the values of SBL because the values actually are our foundation, and we do not, compromise on our values. And last week we had an alumni meeting, where quite a number of alumni came along, although it was our first alumni meeting ever. And one of the alumni, actually, they all shared the perspective because one of my questions to them was really, and I wrote an article about this. My question to them, one of my questions, has school beyond limitations become redundant because we have artificial intelligence? We've got so many other things now out there. Maybe we don't need a school like SPL or schools any at all. And the common, clear answer was no, no, no. It's more important than ever because what I've learned at SPL was the understanding that we are all different, but at the same time, we are united, unity, togetherness, collaboration, self directed learning, the understanding that I'm always appreciated for who I am and that there is commitment needed, that I need to bring, and critical thinking and lots of different values that are really our core values. So you were talking about, different religions before. Exactly. We come from this non judgmental space, with a multicultural understanding of what is around us. Would you say this is a strength or a weakness? Because there may be people out there, who say, yeah, if you are that kind of non judgmental, maybe you don't have any clear direction. And I have my clarity around this, but I would like you to ponder on that. Is being non judgmental, multicultural, sensitive, is that a weakness or is it a strength at the end of the day with regards to, the understanding of who we are within, for ourselves and within society?
I don't know if this ever has been labeled as weakness, honestly. The multicultural sensitivity and the combination of, openness. Because if you're, I mean, we can talk a lot about terminologies, right? Like we did in the past. Judgment, right? Around this word, we can have different, sets of understanding and perspectives. But if I say in a borderline, if you say that your community is not having a clear direction of where it's going just because it's non-judgmental about certain things, then I question what is direction to me. Because direction is not just going to someone and saying, like, this is the way, go this way, and I support you this way. Because then it becomes informative learning. And informative learning can be and easily done by AI, if not any better than schools, honestly. And people might not share my views, but it is true. I mean, you can just ask any AI or even just Google. You don't have to use AIs or anything. Just Google things and you get the information that you need. You can prepare yourself very well for IGCSEs, for A levels, for other IPs and exams like that, because those are pre-directed and they have a syllabus that they follow. There's nothing like extraordinary to change. But if you say that, does that devalue the existence of SBL, or does that mean that SBL should not exist? Then I have to say, like, we have the wrong understanding of what SBL is, because SBL is not about just giving information. Oh, we are an online school. We invite people to come together from different cultures, different backgrounds, and we learn a directed learning. No, no, no. That's not what we do. We create a community where we serve every single individual personally. It's not about a standardized direction of things. It's personalized learning for every single individual. If they then decide to go into a disciplined and directed way of academic learning, which are British board exams, of course you're being supported and guided on that. But the broader understanding and the sense and the value of SBL is not just a direction to be followed, but rather a direction to be created by yourself. And that's why I always mention the word leadership, because there's no one to direct you. There are people to guide you for your direction, which you want to go because you've understood yourself first. And I think this is why I encourage students to come at SBL even at a younger age, because when you are just opening up to social circles, and if you have the right set of people around you, you actually much more easily and much faster have an understanding of yourself. And this is very vital for anyone who want to go anywhere, because majority of the people, we see them, talking about like, oh, I'm lost in life. I don't know what I want to do. They're maybe like 25, 26, and they're still confused. Like, I'm working a job, but I don't really like it. I don't really know what I want to do, because you've never truly took time to understand and find yourself. And this has to be nurtured. It's not something just you wake up one day and you become something. It has to be nurtured over the years, and you have to have the right experts to nurture onto that. And the right experts are only those who understand the entire community and the values of it, right? And as we talk about now, the people who nurture it, it doesn't always come from only the facilitators at SBL. At SBL, the nurture also comes from your peers. It comes from, of course, at home, your parents, and then it also comes from you eventually. You nurture your talents, you nurture your potential because you have recognized it. So self recognition is also something that SBL is constantly trying to get to people's mind. Like, you recognize who you are, and then you set your purpose. We guide you all the way through.
Naif, this is so nicely put because our blueprint says it all, right? Our blueprint says in everything we do, we believe in the power of education in order to really extrapolate, the essence of each person. And it's not something that happens from one day to the next day. It's organic, and it means, being always, mindful about oneself and others around us. That's why I would like to just very quickly get into this aspect of non-judgmental, whether this is, weakness or not. Some people may say if you are open for everything, you are weak. I say the opposite. I think if you are open and you're listening and you make yourself, you build up your own understanding by listening to many different viewpoints, then you are able to find your inner essence, because what resonates with you will come to the surface much more easily.
I think we can just, from different perspectives, take that statement, right? I mean, when people say like, if you're open to everything, then, I question how good is that, or is that a weakness or a strength? We have to understand what is the openness and to what extent that, and where is that openness standing, right? I mean, the openness doesn't mean that if someone wants to, I don't know, in 3 hours of, because we have 3 hours of classroom, like in the classroom setting, and then we go out and we also still learn there. But if someone decides that, oh, I'm not feeling it, so I'd rather play games, let's say for the next 3 hours, the school is not open towards that. The school is open towards understanding what would make them do things that they truly want to do. If it's gaming, then we find a way for them to game, but they also have to learn the basics. And when we oftentimes when we hear certain words, we just picture something, and this is not the reality for everything and everyone, right? When we hear the word holistic learning, personalized learning, we often think like, oh, they don't have any basis, or they don't have any pillars of the basic understanding, the basic learning. How would they then go and flourish in life later? This is not true, because we do have reading, we do have mathematics, we do have English, we do have other subjects in the core academics that we do learn to create that pillar. And then once we are at a stage, then we are opened up to endless possibilities. And information should never be concentrated and should never be compacted. It should always be open. It should always be accessible to people. Wherever you want to go in terms of education and learning, you are allowed to do so. You just need to have the right people to support you, because sometimes it can be hard to have so many possibilities. So what the facilitators truly and actually do in most cases is that they understand you, your progress, your project, and then they work together. And then, of course, it doesn't always mean like, at SBL, oh, maybe the facilitators are always like, oh, it's good, it's great. No, no, no. This is not how it works. You do something which could be done better, they push you to it. And there's a certain method of pushing. You cannot always just take a stick out hit and say, oh, this needs to be done. There are better ways to work together. And you use the word, it's co-creation. You co-create the learning for an individual.
Naive, the last thing that I would like to ask you, I could talk to you for hours, because one can really perceive and feel, how authentic you come across, and that's not staged what you're saying, you know. But if you had to talk to parents who are considering SBL for their children or for their child, their son, their daughter, what would you say to those parents?
Firstly, what do you want for your child? That's a question I want to start with. If you say that I want my child to become an entrepreneur, to become, financially free and to have this understanding of the business world and leadership, well, we do have that. We have the Dragon's Den, which is literally a gathering of people where they pitch their ideas of businesses. We then work on their business ideas and projects, and it's a really competitive setting, but they have the competition within themselves, and they compete how to be better and how to work on it. They constantly work on this. They construct a thing, and it actually turns out to be something that they do in real life. For example, Faces came out to something like that. It was a clothing brand which is registered, and we worked and we operated. It concluded, but the learning, the experience, actually now I have embedded in me, and I can use it anywhere I go. So this is the plus sign. Or do you want your child to become academically very strong and to be someone who researches on a lot of things? Great, good. I mean, we do also have facilitators and those facilities where we also support on that. I mean, we do have individuals who have gone to Oxford and some other great universities around the world, and they're very academically strong. So it's never like, oh, either this or that. It can be all. It can be all if you just have the understanding, right? Or if you want your child to be someone who does extracurricular work like writing, reading, um, what's it called, singing, singer, dancer, musician, whatever. We also do support on that. We have, our mentoring sessions, which again is another vital part of SBL, where an individual personally connects with their mentor for an hour, and also after school and after that time they also still connect, but officially they connect for an hour, and then they discuss what's actually going in their life, and they discuss everything and work on potential next steps where that individual can work on their dreams to become true. So it's as I said, it's covering all aspects of learning: travel learning, financial learning, academic learning, holistic learning, you name it all. But I mean, for these type of learnings to be perceived, we have to be a little open and a little patient, because this doesn't happen over time or like the next day, right? It is a constant process. It is pure nurturing, and the patience is not like I wait for something to become. The patience is also active. You don't patiently just wait. You patiently work on things, and that activeness actually gets you somewhere. Because in traditional schools, you might just go through things. It's very pacey. It's very, very fast forward. You have the sets of things you just go through, and then you pass on, and then you move on, and time moves like forever because you're stuck in that loop. You're stuck in that hole. But when you're actually constructing your own things, time actually becomes very valuable to you, because you then not only like exist, but you live through time. And I may become very philosophical here, but I think this is really true. And then every time gets much more experienced as you grow with you, and you feel much more different as a person.
Thank you so much, Nayeef. I don't have that much to add. I would just like to say, it's important to listen to your insights. I think it's important to understand that learning is an active process that never ends. And at the end of the day, it's a lifestyle, right? What we are doing is a lifestyle. It's not about here is school and there is life. It's a blend, because we are constantly organically co-creating. So, thank you for these insights, Nayeef. I would like to finish today's podcast by just being grateful and by telling everyone, if you feel that this is something also for your daughter, for your son, then reach out to us. We are always there to have a conversation with you. Bye for now. At School Beyond Limitations, we support our students find their unique essence. Feel free to share the content of this podcast with other parents. We are here to show that your children can indeed bring their unique essence into life. So, reach out to us if you think that this is what you'd like your daughter, your son to experience, or apply through our website. also leave your comments, your questions, or your review about the podcast. Share it with others. And as you know, sharing is caring.